Nice. Right. Hello, YouTube. Thank you, as always, for joining. It is 18th of July. Tuesdays normally, as always, when the week gets going. So hopefully we can see that somewhat over the course of this trading session. We had a little slow grind up in the stock markets yesterday. As we noted, I'm probably going to see a little bit more of this sort of behavior perhaps into the end of the week with OPEX, but we'll touch on why that might not be the case a bit later on. But yeah, this was a slow grind from the open yesterday. Not really, busting a gut, but getting it done in the end. Pretty nice action, to be fair, for the bulls. Seeing point of controls up, finding support, point of controls up, more support. Until we had that big selling on the close. Lots of volume being done on the close at the moment. A lot more, pretty much twice the volume that we saw in the open. So yeah, just getting some big moves at 850, 855 these days. If you are able to trade late in the day, not a bad idea to have a look at that. So what have we had out this morning? Not too much in terms of data in the morning session. We had CPI data out of Canada. A little bit softer on the month-on-month CPIs. It doesn't show you on Forex Factory, but if you look on investing.com, we saw the core CPIs down quite dramatically month-on-month. Expected a 0.5 print, negative 0.1 that's reads, so way worse than expected, a 0.6 miss. This is why we're seeing some weakness come through in the Canadian dollar, more so than the US numbers, which we'll talk about in a second. Let me find you the Canadian dollar. This was 130. This was the increase in the dollar relative to the CAD, or relative weakness of the CAD, I'd probably say, rather than strength of the dollar. Because if we look at the data out of the US at the same time, we didn't get a huge amount of positivity out of that either. Core retail sales were down, were up only 0.2% versus an expectation of 0.4. We were revised up slightly previously. Maybe that's what's given it a kind of neutrality on the dollar, but this isn't really a significant beat or miss. I have to say, we were expecting something, or hoping for something slightly bigger than this. Maybe a minus 0.2 read would have been enough to justify a trade. This really wasn't. So really just the core CPI figures in Canada giving us something to get our teeth into today in terms of news. But yeah, we've had some really interesting action across different markets today. If you have a look at the gold market, I want to show you what a stop run looks like. My God, this was a hell of a move earlier on today, not on no news whatsoever. we had this high taken out. We'd had a little bit of support here. We had value area highs for the month sitting around here. So these are natural areas of liquidity. Had a little push through and reclaimed. Looked like there are a lot of people who have stop orders above this level because we jumped in that. I can stick this on a 1 minute or even a 30-second chart if you like. That's how quickly this move happened. There's $10 pop or $8 pop in gold as it stops to run. Yeah, we haven't quite surpassed those levels again yet, but that was a pretty ugly bit of action from gold on no news whatsoever. Just kind of keying through levels. We've nudged up very close to it again, created a double top. I mean, it looks like we've nipped briefly through it in the time while I was putting this together. So yeah, perhaps just nudge those highs once more. But yeah, gold had been setting up rather nicely for shorts, but this looks like a few people were short and no longer are. And I'm not surprised given that move. That was ugly. What else have we seen today? Well, I mentioned that we would talk about the options expiry. We do have that coming through on Friday. I'm not with you on YouTube again till next Tuesday. So might as well talk about it a bit here. We've seen the option expiry be pretty useful. The high of or that swing high was on option expiry for June. We go back to last year, that June OPEX was pretty pivotal as well for the lows, right? That third Friday of the month was the low for some time. We had a bear market rally that took it into bull market territory out of this on the S&P. I'm pretty sure we got over 20% out of this, if memory serves me correct. Not quite, but it was been the NASDAQ that managed to post more than 20 off the back of this. But yeah, this was on OPEX for June. We saw a slightly smaller turning point on the OPEX for June. We saw similar actually in the option expiry for May here. That was the relative swing high. Again, we got 100 ticks downside on the S&P. So with this leading into OPEX, might be looking for potential turning points at that stage. I mentioned we had slow grinds up in the GS yesterday, the S&P 500. This is typical of something leading into OPEX, just getting the grind done higher. And if we do keep pushing higher, that would lead me to be pretty optimistic of a turning point, at least to some degree, around Friday. I know Dominic, shout out to Dominic, who's been doing some back testing and some data on this. A lot of the turning points have happened on the Tuesday prior to option expiry. That's today. So there is a hope that maybe we could potentially see weakness start as early as today. As I say, we often get the turning points on the Friday or either side of that Friday. But yeah, there's been plenty of cases on the data that he's gone through that we see those highs come through on the Tuesday before OPEX. Okay. But yeah, let's see if we do get some weakness on that. I'm still in the camp of seeing this grind higher personally. Yeah, always open to price action. Things are going to change. So what else do we have? We're looking at orders. Let's maybe take a look at the book map, see if we've got anything significant to look at either side on the S&P. It's not looking that interesting at the moment. Up. You're seeing a lot more in the relative proximity. There's a lot more buyers below than there are sellers above. Well, didn't like me moving this over, did it? Maybe I'll chuck that back and we'll take this. Try harder. Put that back where it came from. So where are we in the context of the S&P? We're obviously a lot higher than where we were. There is some high volume. There's a high volume node up here, which we just kind of nudged close to. So this is a potential sort of turning point. That's something I had looked at. The stock market that's interesting me the most is the FTSE at the moment. We've had a nice shift in the value areas. There's some pretty empty price action. If you have a look on like a 1 hour chart, this will probably show you it a little bit clearly. We zoom in on this. We have this big sell-off through from around here again, right? Big selling with very little in the way of buying, and then another big rally up undoing that move. If we do manage to get any sort of selling done below these previous lows that we had from yesterday, then there is the floor is open for aggressive selling on this FTSE today. Well, not necessarily today, or if these moves happen. They do manage to cling on to this, perhaps we can get the slow grind higher that we're expecting from the US markets. But yeah, there is hope that if we do stay below this point of control, which is only a smidge above where we are, we can see it rejecting that actually on the 1 hour already recently around this 11s. If we can stay below here, and managed to crack below the lows from yesterday, then yeah, the floor is open for a potential accelerated move to the downside, and something that should be pretty easy to catch. These were pretty easy, I have to say, as were some of these. This was the move prior to the Wednesday of CPI and or out of it after that last time. So yeah, pretty big moves for that CPI at 130 last week out of the FTSE. So yeah, worth paying attention to these markets. What else are we seeing in terms of the ES around this sort of time? Anything similar on a monthly time frame? We're nicely above the value areas on this, so not seeing the same thing. I know that the Dow had posted some nice levels and I have seen shifts in the value area, but as of yet, it's still finding support above the monthly control here. You can see that tagging that level before finding support here. Had that little kind of stop run. We see this a lot in the summer. I do talk about this a lot in the summer. Around the close yesterday night, we had that big run up and then slammed down into the close. So that great action, I have to say. But yes, so perhaps there is potential for weakness to come through on the Dow compared to its counterparts. There is a lack of volume again in this zone before you get into this point of control area. So perhaps this will act as a magnet, as it quite often does as we approach the open. Let me try and get the order flow back. Is it going to behave itself? Do I need to close some windows? Starting to see some more orders coming above, close to price here. But we do have really hefty orders underneath. These have been in the book for a little while. That's what, 20 ticks lower than where we are now, 45.30 on the ES contract. Yeah, take a look. The open, if I drill in a little bit closer, we'll see the initial action begin. The initial softness, I mean, these orders above, they may look strong because of the coloration here, that these are not big orders. You often see much bigger orders than these at prices on the S&P. So we're not seeing a huge amount. Probably not going to give us too much. Probably better to watch price action. No huge orders to get into there. Let's take a look at these markets together. Not seeing a so softness in the NASDAQ first and foremost. That's the one that's been probably the biggest weak market since the open. Although we are seeing red across the board so far within the indices. Early on, but yeah, we're seeing, you can see the relative weakness, right? We've taken out that 140 low on the NASDAQ, haven't yet taken it out on the S&P, just getting it done on the Dow now as well. S&P too far behind by the current price action that we're seeing. If you take a look at the relative strength of these indices, the European markets are relatively unchanged, right? Considering, I mean, we talked about this morning on the Zoom, and not a lot have been going on with these indices, and still not a lot's going on. I think we're pretty much as we were on the European indices, starting to see a bit more softness come through now that the US have opened up. It's the NASDAQ, as I say, that is showing the biggest amount of weakness. We hardly had anything that was more than 0.2 or 0.3 down or up earlier this morning. And yes, not too much in the way of big moves here. Anyway, for 0.7 on the Bund seems to be the big one. Maybe on the Brent, you're seeing a little bit more life. That was the biggest one. So yeah, not a huge amount to talk about today. It is the summer, so we will heed caution even on a Tuesday when things do get going. I'm personally quite keen to wait for tomorrow's earnings. We've got a lot coming through tomorrow. ASML, biggest component of the Euro stocks and of the Dutch market, by quite some distance in the Dutch market. We've got Goldman Sachs out just after midday tomorrow. That's a huge component of the Dow Jones. And then we've got three big, relatively big, Tesla being one of them, big earnings out in the evening, along with Netflix and IBM. So plenty to get into tomorrow, even if today. So yeah, let me leave it with you. We'll be back on Zoom in the morning. And yeah, we'll look forward to that on YouTube. I'll be back with you then.